No one knew what slept beneath the ruins of Blackstone Mountain. For centuries, every hunter, explorer, and treasure seeker who entered its underground halls vanished without leaving behind even a single footprint. The kingdom buried the truth beneath fear, calling the mountain cursed so no one would ever search for the answer hidden beneath its frozen heart. But one bitter winter morning, a poor village healer climbed those forbidden slopes searching only for a handful of rare herbs. Instead, she discovered an enormous silver wolf still breathing beneath ancient black chains no human should have been able to forge. Before the Alpha King could reach the mountain, the final lock had already begun to break, and something that had waited in darkness for centuries slowly opened its golden eyes. Winter ruled the Kingdom of Valenor with a silent, unforgiving hand. From the highest peaks of the Frost-Crown Mountains to the smallest farming villages tucked beneath their shadows, snow covered the land like an endless white sea. Rivers slept beneath thick sheets of ice. Forests stood silent beneath heavy blankets of snow, and every breath carried the sharp bite of freezing air. Far beyond the royal capital, hidden between ancient pine forests and rolling hills, rested the quiet village of Briar Hollow. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names. Smoke drifted peacefully from stone chimneys every morning. Children laughed while chasing each other through narrow streets after the first snowfall. Farmers greeted the sunrise long before the church bell echoed across the valley. Life there had never been wealthy, but it had always been honest. Among the simple cottages stood the smallest home in the village. Its wooden roof leaned slightly beneath the weight of fresh snow, while climbing ivy clung stubbornly to its weathered walls despite the bitter cold. Inside lived a young healer named Aria. She owned almost nothing. A narrow bed rested beside the fireplace. Bundles of dried herbs hung from the ceiling beams. Glass bottles filled with homemade remedies lined rough wooden shelves. A small table stood beside the only window, where sunlight often warmed her work during brighter days. There were no expensive medicines. No silver ornaments. No fine clothes. Only simple things gathered through years of quiet work. Yet every family in Briar Hollow trusted her more than the richest physicians in distant cities. Whenever someone became sick, they knocked on Aria's door. Whenever an animal returned from the forest wounded, someone carried it to her little cottage. Whenever winter grew cruel, she shared what little food she had before thinking of herself. Kindness had become so natural to her that she rarely noticed the sacrifices anymore. Before dawn, she was already awake. The fire inside her hearth had almost died. She carefully added another piece of firewood before wrapping her old wool cloak around her shoulders. Outside, the wind pushed against the cottage walls with low, mournful whistles. She stepped onto the frozen path carrying a woven basket beneath one arm. The cold struck her face immediately. Her fingers stiffened inside worn leather gloves. Snow crunched beneath every careful step. The village remained quiet except for distant rooster calls and the soft creaking of frozen branches swaying overhead. An elderly woman waited outside the neighboring cottage. She smiled gently as Aria approached. "You'll be climbing again today." Aria nodded. "I'm running out of moonshade blossoms." The old woman's smile quickly disappeared. Blackstone Mountain. Aria looked toward the distant peaks rising above the forest. Their dark cliffs disappeared beneath drifting clouds. Only the southern slope. The woman stepped closer. "People don't return from there anymore. They return from the lower paths. The lower paths no longer have the flowers." Silence settled between them. Finally, the old woman reached into her pocket and placed a small wooden charm into Aria's hand. "My husband carved this before he passed. He always believed it kept travelers safe." Aria smiled warmly. "I'll bring it back." The woman shook her head. "Keep it. Something tells me you'll need it more than I ever will." Aria quietly thanked her before continuing toward the forest. Behind her, several villagers watched in uneasy silence. None of them liked seeing anyone walk toward Blackstone Mountain. Especially in winter. Old stories surrounded those cliffs. Stories of strange lights dancing beneath the snow. Stories of voices calling travelers by name. Stories of enormous wolves whose glowing eyes appeared between the trees before disappearing without leaving tracks. Most dismissed them as legends. Still, no one willingly climbed the mountain. The forest welcomed Aria with familiar peace. Towering pines shielded much of the falling snow. Sunlight filtered gently through their branches, painting long silver patterns across the untouched ground. A pair of red squirrels raced along a fallen log. Small birds fluttered between icy branches despite the cold. Somewhere nearby, a woodpecker tapped steadily against an old oak tree. Life continued quietly beneath winter's heavy blanket. Aria smiled. Nature had always felt like home. She paused beside a frozen stream where fresh animal tracks crossed the ice. A young fox limped from behind a cluster of bushes. Its back leg trembled each time it placed weight upon it. The animal froze when it noticed her. Its ears flattened nervously. Aria slowly knelt. She placed a small piece of dried meat onto the snow before speaking softly. "It's all right. I'm not here to hurt you." The fox hesitated. Its bright amber eyes studied her face. After a long moment, it cautiously stepped forward. Each movement revealed the pain hidden beneath its careful balance. Aria waited patiently. When the fox finally reached her, she gently examined its injured leg. A sharp thorn remained buried beneath the paw. She carefully removed it. The fox flinched but never snapped at her. She wrapped the tiny wound with a strip of soft cloth from her satchel before gently scratching behind its ears. "There. You'll hunt much better tomorrow." The fox looked at her for another quiet moment, then disappeared into the trees without making a sound. Aria smiled to herself before continuing the climb. Hours passed. The forest slowly changed. Tall pines became thinner. The air grew colder. Dark cliffs rose higher with every step. Even the birds seemed fewer now. Eventually, the familiar sounds of woodland life disappeared completely. Only the wind remained. It swept through broken stone pillars scattered across the mountainside, producing long hollow whistles that sounded strangely like distant voices. Ahead stood the forgotten ruins of Blackstone. Ancient walls lay broken beneath centuries of snow. Massive stone arches leaned at impossible angles. Cracked statues rested half-buried beneath drifting ice, their weathered faces staring silently toward the mountain peaks. Aria had heard countless stories about these ruins. Long ago, they had belonged to an ancient kingdom. Then one winter, everyone vanished. No battle, no fire, no plague, only silence. She quietly pushed those stories from her thoughts. Fear solved nothing. Moonshade blossoms usually grew among old stone where snow melted first beneath hidden warmth. She carefully searched between broken pillars until flashes of silver caught her eye. There they were. Tiny flowers no larger than her thumb. Their delicate petals shimmered softly against the snow like scattered pieces of moonlight. Relief spread across her face. She knelt beside them. One by one, she gently placed each blossom into her basket. Enough medicine to help nearly every sick child in Briar Hollow. Just as she reached for another flower, a strange sound echoed beneath her feet. Clang. Metal. Heavy. Distant. She stopped moving. The sound came again. Slow. Dragging. As though enormous chains had shifted somewhere deep underground. Her eyes searched the empty ruins. Nothing moved. Only drifting snow crossed the broken stones. Then, another sound. A single breath. Deep. Painfully slow. Almost too quiet to hear. It rose from somewhere beneath the frozen earth. Aria stood. Her heartbeat quickened. Carefully lifting her lantern, she followed the sound toward a collapsed stone arch hidden behind layers of snow. Cold air drifted upward through a narrow crack beneath the ruins. It carried the scent of wet stone, ancient dust, and rusted iron. She brushed loose snow away with trembling hands. A narrow staircase appeared beneath it. Darkness stretched downward beyond the reach of daylight. Another slow breath echoed from below. Then silence. Every story she had ever heard warned her to leave. Every instinct begged her to turn around. Yet another feeling, stronger than fear, pulled her forward. She lit her lantern. Golden light pushed gently against the darkness. Taking one careful step after another, Aria disappeared beneath Blackstone Mountain, completely unaware that her life and the fate of an entire kingdom had just begun to change forever. The stone staircase spiraled deep beneath Blackstone Mountain, swallowing the last traces of daylight with every careful step Aria took. The warm glow of her lantern reached only a few feet ahead before darkness swallowed it whole again. Cold drops of water fell steadily from the ceiling, striking the stone floor with soft echoes that disappeared into the endless silence. The air smelled of damp earth, ancient iron, and something far older, a scent that reminded her of forgotten places untouched by time. She tightened her grip on the lantern. Each step echoed through the narrow passage. Behind her, the entrance had already vanished into darkness. Ahead, the tunnel curved gently downward. The deeper she walked, the stranger the mountain became. The walls were no longer rough stone. Someone had carved them. Ancient symbols stretched across the rock in graceful circles and flowing lines unlike any language Aria had ever seen. Dust covered most of the markings, yet a faint silver glow pulsed beneath them, as though they had been waiting for someone to return. A cold breeze drifted through the passage. It should not have existed this far underground. The flame inside her lantern flickered. Then another sound reached her ears. A slow, heavy, metallic scrape. She stopped breathing. The sound came again. Not loud. Not violent. Only the quiet movement of enormous chains shifting somewhere ahead. Her heart pounded against her ribs. Still, she continued. The tunnel widened into a vast underground chamber. Aria stepped through the stone archway and froze. The lantern's golden light spread across towering pillars that disappeared into darkness above. Massive stone wolves had been carved into every column, their eyes raised toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Crystal formations shimmered along the walls like frozen stars, reflecting soft blue light across the ancient hall. At the chamber center stood 4 pillars of black iron. Between them stretched enormous chains. Each link was thicker than a grown man's arm. Dark runes covered every inch of the metal. Some still glowed faintly beneath centuries of dust. The chains reached toward a shape resting upon the cold stone floor. Aria slowly raised the lantern. Her breath caught in her throat. An enormous silver wolf lay there. Its body was larger than the strongest warhorse. Thick silver fur covered powerful muscles now weakened by countless years of captivity. Old scars crossed its broad shoulders. Fresh wounds circled each leg where the enchanted chains had bitten deep into flesh that had somehow never fully healed. Its breathing was painfully slow. Each breath sounded like a weary sigh carried across centuries. For a terrifying moment, Aria thought the creature had already died. Then one massive ear twitched. The wolf inhaled again. Slowly. Its golden eyes opened. They were unlike anything she had ever seen. They carried no madness. No hunger. No rage. Only endless exhaustion. And a loneliness so deep it almost made her chest ache. The great wolf watched her quietly. Neither of them moved. The silence felt sacred. Aria had treated frightened horses, wounded deer, and injured wolves before. She knew the look of an animal preparing to attack. This was not that look. This creature simply waited. As though it had forgotten what hope felt like. Very slowly, Aria knelt. "I'm not here to hurt you," she whispered. Her voice disappeared into the enormous chamber. The wolf blinked once. Its ears lifted slightly. It made no attempt to pull against the chains. Instead, its great head lowered until its nose rested against the cold stone floor. The gesture felt less like surrender, and more like trust. Aria set her basket beside her. She approached one careful step at a time. The chains remained silent. The wolf never looked away. When she reached its front leg, she finally saw the wounds clearly. The black iron had cut deep into the flesh. The skin around each shackle had turned dark and swollen. Even after centuries, the chains continued to wound the guardian with every small movement. Her eyes filled with sadness. No living creature should suffer like this. She whispered. She dipped a clean cloth into her water flask. Carefully, she washed dried blood from one wound. The wolf flinched. Not from anger. From pain. "I'm sorry." She worked slowly. Fresh herbs from her satchel filled the air with the gentle scent of pine and mountain mint. She crushed the leaves between smooth stones until they formed a soft green paste before spreading it gently across the injured flesh. The wolf closed its eyes. Its breathing became steadier, almost peaceful, as though no one had cared for those wounds in longer than memory itself. Then something unexpected happened. A faint silver light appeared beneath the chains. At first it was little more than a shimmer. Then ancient runes began glowing one after another. Lines of light spread across the chamber floor like flowing water. Aria stepped back in surprise. The carvings covering the walls awakened. Stone wolves seemed almost alive beneath the dancing light. Ancient symbols pulsed gently with every heartbeat. The entire sanctuary had begun to respond. Not to magic, to compassion. A low hum echoed through the chamber. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The wolf slowly opened its eyes again. For the first time. There was warmth inside them. Not much. Only a small spark. But it had not been there before. Aria looked around in silent wonder. Images began appearing across the glowing walls. Not painted. Remembered. She watched forests stretching farther than the eye could see. Kings walking beside mighty wolves instead of riding behind armies. Children laughing as silver guardians watched peacefully from nearby hills. The land looked vibrant. Whole. Alive. Then the vision changed. Dark figures appeared. Greedy hands reached toward crowns. Black chains were forged inside roaring furnaces. The great silver wolf fought to protect the forests while men driven by power surrounded it. One final betrayal. One terrible battle. The guardian was dragged beneath the mountain. The chains closed. Darkness swallowed everything. The glowing images faded. Only silence remained. Aria stared at the ancient walls. So, this is why. A single tear slipped down her cheek. You weren't a monster. You were protecting everyone. The guardian slowly lifted its head. Its golden eyes rested gently upon her once more. For the first time in countless centuries, someone finally understood. Far above the mountain, snow swirled violently across the cliffs. Hooves thundered through the frozen forest. Alpha King Lucian rode at the front of 12 royal guards, his black cloak snapping behind him in the icy wind. His horse climbed the narrow mountain trail without slowing. The elderly royal historian struggled to keep pace. The old record spoke of this place, the old man called over the wind. But no king has entered Blackstone for nearly 400 years. Lucian never looked back. If the guardian has awakened, he said quietly, then history is already changing. They reached the ruined arch near sunset. Lucian dismounted immediately. His sharp eyes scanned the snow-covered ground. Fresh footprints. Small. Light. A young woman. They led directly toward the hidden entrance beneath the ruins. The king's expression darkened. Someone is already inside. Before anyone could speak again, another group watched silently from the edge of the forest. Dark horses stood among the pines. Armored mercenaries waited beneath black cloaks. At their center sat Lord Malrek. His cold smile never reached his eyes. So, he murmured. The legends were true after all. He looked toward the hidden entrance beneath Blackstone Mountain. Prepare the men. If the Guardian truly lives, its power will belong to me. As the last light faded behind the frozen peaks, 3 very different destinies began moving toward the same ancient sanctuary. Deep beneath the mountain, Aria gently rested one hand upon the Guardian's wounded shoulder, completely unaware that an Alpha King raced to reach her, and a far more dangerous enemy was already closing in from the darkness. The mountain seemed to breathe. A slow tremor rolled through the ancient sanctuary, sending tiny streams of dust drifting from the towering ceiling. The glowing runes beneath the Guardian's chains pulsed brighter than before, filling the vast chamber with soft silver light that danced across the carved stone wolves watching silently from every pillar. Aria remained kneeling beside the great wolf. The fear that had followed her into the mountain had quietly faded. Only compassion remained. She gently replaced the cloth wrapped around one of the Guardian's wounded legs. Fresh herbs cooled the angry flesh where centuries of enchanted iron had carved deep into its skin. Every careful movement drew another slow, steady breath from the ancient creature. You've carried this pain for so long, she whispered. I wish I could have come sooner. The Guardian lowered its enormous head. Its warm breath brushed gently across her hands. Then something extraordinary happened. The golden eyes looking into hers began to shimmer. The sanctuary disappeared. At least, it felt as though it had. Aria found herself standing beneath a sky filled with brilliant stars. She stood in the middle of an endless green valley where silver wolves ran freely beside laughing children. Crystal rivers sparkled beneath the moonlight, while towering trees stretched toward the heavens without a single branch left broken by war. Kings walked among ordinary villagers. No crowns separated them. No walls divided them. Every human greeted the wolves not as beasts, but as trusted guardians. The enormous silver wolf stood proudly upon a nearby hill. Its fur reflected the moon like flowing water. Its golden eyes were filled with quiet peace. Another vision followed. The sky darkened. Forests burned. Axes echoed through ancient woods. Powerful nobles argued around a great stone table while maps covered with red markings spread before them. One man slammed his fist against the table. Another pointed toward the wolves with hatred burning in his eyes. The guardian stepped forward. Not to attack. To protect. Then, chains. Black iron glowing with cursed runes. Dozens of soldiers surrounded the great wolf. It fought with impossible strength, never striking those who fled, only shielding frightened families caught in the battle. One final betrayal. A trusted ally drove an enchanted spear into the guardian's shoulder. The great wolf stumbled. The chains tightened. The mountain closed around it. Darkness. Silence. Loneliness. The vision shattered. Aria gasped. She found herself kneeling exactly where she had been. Her cheeks were wet with tears she hadn't realized were falling. The guardian watched her quietly. It had shared its memories. Not through words. Through trust. "I know now," she whispered. "They betrayed you." The great wolf blinked slowly. For the first time since she had entered the sanctuary, it gently touched its enormous nose against her forehead. The simple gesture carried centuries of gratitude. A deep rumble echoed through the chamber. Not from the guardian. From above. Footsteps. Many of them. Metal boots striking ancient stone. Torches flickered at the entrance to the sanctuary. Aria quickly stood. Several armored soldiers emerged from the darkness with drawn swords. Their armor bore the silver wolf crest of the Kingdom of Valenor. Behind them walked a tall man wrapped in a heavy black cloak trimmed with white fur. His dark hair rested against broad shoulders dusted with fresh snow. A long sword hung at his side. His sharp grey eyes immediately found the enormous guardian. Then, they found Aria standing beside it. The entire chamber fell silent. No one moved. The soldiers slowly raised their weapons. The guardian did not. It remained perfectly still. The tall stranger stepped forward. Every movement carried calm authority rather than pride. "You should move away from it," he said quietly. Aria looked at the guardian. The great wolf remained peaceful. "It won't hurt anyone." Several soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. One whispered, "Your Majesty." So this was him. Alpha King Lucian. The ruler whose name every child in Valenor knew. Lucian studied the broken chains scattered across the stone floor. His expression slowly changed. Not fear. Regret. "I was too late," he murmured. The words were barely louder than the wind outside. For years he had searched forgotten libraries, questioned elderly monks, collected fragments of legends dismissed by nearly everyone else. Every story had warned of this day. If the guardian ever awakened before the kingdom remembered the truth, the balance protecting Valenor would begin to fail. Yet standing before him now, nothing matched the terrifying stories. The legendary beast looked exhausted, wounded, patient, and strangely protective. Its enormous body rested slightly in front of Aria, as though shielding her without making the gesture obvious. Lucian slowly lowered his sword. The soldiers hesitated. "My king," one captain warned. Lucian never looked away from the guardian. "If it wished us dead," he said calmly, "none of us would have reached this chamber." The captain slowly lowered his weapon. Aria finally spoke. "It isn't dangerous." Lucian's eyes met hers. You know what it is. She nodded gently. I know what it isn't. The king frowned. It isn't a monster. Silence settled over the sanctuary. Those simple words struck harder than any accusation. 4 generations. Every royal record had described the Guardian as a beast imprisoned to protect mankind. Yet the wounds carved into its legs told another story. Lucian stepped closer. Carefully. Respectfully. The Guardian watched him. Its ears lifted slightly. But it did not bow. Nor did it growl. It simply observed the king with ancient, unreadable eyes. Lucian stopped several steps away. I failed you, he whispered. I inherited a throne built upon forgotten lies. The Guardian remained silent. Perhaps forgiveness could not be given so easily. Or perhaps it had never blamed those who came after. Another tremor shook the mountain. This one stronger. Dust poured from cracks high above. The glowing runes surrounding the sanctuary flickered. One of the royal scholars accompanying the king hurried toward an ancient stone wall. His face turned pale. The prison seal. He whispered. It has weakened. Lucian turned sharply. What do you mean? The Guardian wasn't chained here simply as punishment. The old scholar brushed dust away from faded carvings. A massive dark shape had been carved beneath the mountain. The Guardian stood above it, holding it back. The chains also anchored something far older. A heavy silence filled the chamber. Aria looked toward the broken iron scattered across the floor. The realization settled over everyone at once. Freeing the Guardian had also weakened another prison. Far away, beyond the sanctuary, a faint crack echoed deep beneath the earth. No one noticed the thin ribbon of black mist escaping through the stone. Not yet. Outside the mountain, snow continued falling. Lord Malrek watched the hidden entrance from the shelter of towering pines. One of his spies emerged quietly from the darkness. The king has entered. And the Guardian? The spy swallowed nervously. It lives. Malrek smiled. A slow, satisfied, dangerous smile. Excellent. He looked toward the mountain rising above the forest. For centuries they protected it for me. He rested one hand upon the hilt of his sword. Now, we simply take it. Behind him, dozens of mercenaries silently prepared enchanted weapons forged from the same cursed black iron that had once chained the Guardian. The first trap had already been sprung. The second was about to begin. Deep beneath Blackstone Mountain, none of them realized that while a forgotten Guardian had finally found freedom, something far darker had also begun to awaken beneath the ancient stone. The first thread of black mist slipped silently through a crack in the stone. It moved so slowly that no one noticed it at first. The pale silver light filling the sanctuary continued to glow across the ancient walls, but where the mist drifted, that gentle light dimmed as though something unseen had swallowed it. Frost spread across the floor in twisting patterns, and the air grew colder with every passing heartbeat. The Guardian was the first to react. Its ears lifted sharply. The peaceful expression in its golden eyes vanished. A deep growl rolled through its chest, low enough to shake dust from the towering pillars. Every royal guard instinctively reached for a weapon. Lucian slowly raised one hand. Hold. The soldiers froze. The Guardian was not looking at them. Its eyes remained fixed on the widening crack beneath the broken chains. Another tremor shook the sanctuary. This one stronger than before. Stone groaned overhead. Thin lines raced across the ancient floor like lightning trapped inside the rock. Aria looked toward the fractured seal. The silver runes surrounding it were fading. One by one. Like stars disappearing before dawn. The elderly royal scholar hurried toward the glowing carvings, his hands trembling. This cannot be happening. He brushed away centuries of dust from another stone tablet hidden beside the wall. Ancient letters slowly appeared beneath his fingers. His face turned completely pale. The Guardian. He whispered. It was never imprisoned because it was dangerous. Lucian stepped beside him. What does it say? The old man swallowed. It chose this. Silence filled the chamber. It gave up its freedom. Aria looked toward the enormous wolf. The guardian never looked away from the spreading darkness. The scholar continued reading. When the first corruption rose beneath Blackstone, no army could destroy it. The guardian offered its own life as the final seal. The enchanted chains did not punish it. They bound both protector and darkness together. Aria's heart sank. So when the chains broke, the old scholar slowly nodded. The prison weakened. The guardian had suffered willingly. For centuries. Not because anyone forced it to remain. Because someone had to protect the kingdom. Aria's eyes filled with quiet sorrow. You stayed here alone. The great wolf slowly turned toward her. Despite the pain. Despite the centuries of loneliness. Its gaze remained gentle. There was no bitterness inside those ancient eyes. Only acceptance. Another crack split across the stone floor. This time black mist poured upward in twisting ribbons. Where it touched the ancient carvings, silver light disappeared. Small crystals growing along the walls turned dark and brittle before shattering into black dust. The sanctuary itself was beginning to die. Suddenly the guardian leaped. Its enormous body landed directly over the widening crack. A brilliant silver light burst from beneath its paws. The black mist stopped spreading. For a moment. Only a moment. The guardian trembled violently. Holding back the darkness demanded strength it no longer possessed. Its breathing grew heavier. Fresh blood stained the old wounds around its legs. Lucian took a step forward. It cannot do this alone. Aria looked around desperately. There must be another way. The scholar searched the ancient walls again. There is. He pointed toward a faded mural nearly hidden behind a broken pillar. Aria brushed away the dust. A beautiful image slowly appeared. The guardian stood beside ordinary men and women. Not kings. Not warriors. Healers. Children. Farmers. Together they surrounded a glowing crystal resting beneath the mountain. The guardian never protected the kingdom alone, the scholar said quietly. It drew strength from people whose hearts were free of greed. Lucian frowned. Then why was this forgotten? Before the scholar could answer, a horn echoed through the tunnels. Once. Then again. The sound carried through the underground halls like a warning from another age. One of the royal guards rushed toward the entrance passage. He returned moments later, breathing hard. My king! He could barely catch his breath. They're inside. Lucian drew his sword in one smooth motion. How many? At least 50. The answer settled heavily across the chamber. 50 trained mercenaries inside narrow underground tunnels. The odds were terrible. Torchlight appeared at the far end of the sanctuary. Dark figures emerged one after another. Black armor. Black cloaks. Black shields. Their weapons gleamed with strange crimson runes. At their center walked Lord Malrek. Tall. Broad-shouldered. His silver-trimmed armor reflected the flickering torchlight. Unlike Lucian, whose authority came through quiet confidence, Malrek carried himself with the pride of someone who believed the world already belonged to him. His cold grey eyes slowly swept across the sanctuary. They lingered on the guardian. Then settled on Aria. So, he said softly, the stories were true. His smile widened. And here I thought legends existed only to frighten children. Lucian stepped forward. This place belongs to the crown. Malrek laughed. The crown. He slowly spread his arms. Everything beneath this mountain belonged to my ancestors long before your family learned to wear crowns. His gaze returned to the guardian. What a magnificent creature. So much wasted power. The guardian answered with another low growl. Even weakened. Its presence filled the sanctuary. Several mercenaries unconsciously stepped backward. Malrek noticed. His smile disappeared. Advance. No one moved. Advance. Reluctantly, the first line of soldiers raised enchanted spears forged from black iron. The guardian lowered its head. Silver light rippled through its fur. Lucian lifted his sword. The royal guards formed a protective line in front of Aria and the scholar. The sanctuary fell silent. Then everything happened at once. The first spear flew. The Guardian twisted. The weapon shattered against invisible silver light before reaching its target. Mercenaries rushed forward. Steel clashed against steel. The ringing sound echoed through every tunnel beneath the mountain. Torches fell. Flames scattered across the ancient floor. Lucian met the first attacker head-on. His sword moved with practiced precision, knocking aside a heavy axe before sending its owner crashing onto the stone. Around him, royal guards fought desperately to hold the narrow entrance. Aria stayed near the Guardian. She could do little against armed soldiers. But she noticed something no one else did. The black iron weapons left dark scars whenever they struck the sanctuary floor. Each wound spread corruption. Every attack weakened the ancient prison. They're not trying to win, she whispered. Lucian turned briefly. What? They're breaking the seal. Almost as if he had heard her, Malrek smiled. Very good. You finally understand. He pointed his sword toward the cracked floor beneath the Guardian. I never came for the wolf. I came for what it has protected. His soldiers immediately changed direction. Ignoring the royal guards, they struck the glowing stone surrounding the prison. Every enchanted blade drove deeper cracks through the ancient seal. Black mist surged upward. The Guardian roared. The sound shook the mountain itself. Silver light burst outward, throwing several mercenaries across the chamber. But the effort nearly drove the ancient wolf to its knees. Blood dripped onto the glowing runes beneath its paws. Aria rushed to its side. Her hands pressed gently against its wounded shoulder. You don't have to carry this alone anymore. The Guardian looked at her. Its breathing slowed. The silver light surrounding them grew brighter. The ancient runes answered once again. The mountain trembled violently. Far below them, something enormous stirred in the darkness. And for the first time in centuries, a pair of crimson eyes slowly opened beneath Blackstone Mountain. The crimson eyes beneath the mountain did not blink. They remained hidden far below the ancient sanctuary, buried beneath layers of stone older than memory itself. Yet their awakening sent a pulse through Blackstone Mountain so powerful that every torch flickered at once. The walls groaned. Dust poured from the ceiling in pale grey curtains. Loose stones bounced across the floor. For a heartbeat, everyone stopped fighting. Even Lord Malrek turned toward the widening crack beneath the Guardian. What was that? One mercenary whispered. No one answered. The Guardian already knew. Its ears flattened against its head. Its massive body trembled beneath the strain of holding back the spreading corruption. A deep, mournful howl rolled through the sanctuary. It wasn't a cry of fear. It was a warning. The sound echoed through every forgotten tunnel beneath Blackstone Mountain, disappearing into darkness where no human had walked for centuries. Aria rested both hands against the Guardian's wounded shoulder. Its silver fur felt strangely warm despite the freezing air. You've carried this alone long enough, she whispered. The Guardian slowly turned its head toward her. Its golden eyes softened. Then another vision rushed into her mind. She saw a hidden chamber far beneath the sanctuary. At its center stood a crystal unlike anything she had ever imagined. It floated above a pool of perfectly clear water. Golden roots of light stretched from the crystal into every corner of the mountain. Then the vision darkened. Black mist wrapped around those glowing roots. The crystal dimmed. Forests above withered. Rivers turned grey. Animals fled dying lands. One final image remained. The Guardian standing beside the crystal. Waiting. Waiting for someone. Not a king. Not a warrior. Someone whose heart placed others before themselves. The vision vanished. Aria looked toward Lucian. We have to go deeper. The Alpha King frowned. What did you see? The heart. The mountain is protecting something. Before Lucian could reply, the elderly scholar gasped. The heart vault. His weathered hands searched desperately through another carved wall. There are stories. I thought they were only myths. He uncovered another ancient mural. At its center shone the same crystal Aria had seen. The heart crystal feeds life into the forests, rivers, and valleys of Valenor. Lucian studied the faded carvings. And if it dies? The old scholar closed his eyes. So does the kingdom. Another violent tremor answered his words. This time part of the sanctuary ceiling collapsed. Massive stones crashed onto the battlefield. Mercenaries stumbled backward. Royal guards raised shields against falling debris. Malrek looked upward, irritation replacing confidence. We're running out of time. He pointed toward Aria. Take the girl. And kill anyone who stands in your way. A dozen mercenaries charged. Lucian met them before they reached her. Steel clashed beneath falling stone. The Alpha King fought with calm precision, turning aside one blade before striking another from an attacker's hand. His soldiers closed ranks beside him. Still, they were being pushed back. The Guardian suddenly rose. Not with the effortless strength of old legends, but with painful determination. Its wounded legs shook beneath its enormous weight. Blood stained the ancient floor, yet it stepped forward anyway. One mighty paw struck the stone. Silver light exploded outward. The blast swept through the sanctuary like a winter storm. Mercenaries were thrown backward. Torches spun through the air before dying against the frozen floor. For a brief moment, the path behind the Guardian opened. A narrow tunnel glowed faintly beneath the broken sanctuary. The Heart Vault. The Guardian looked directly at Aria, then turned toward the hidden passage. It needed no words. She understood. Lucian saw it too. Go. Aria hesitated. What about you? I'll hold them. You can't fight all of them. I don't need forever. He smiled despite the chaos around him. I only need enough time. Another crash shook the sanctuary. The Guardian nudged Aria gently with its great head. She nodded. Together they disappeared into the narrow passage while Lucian and the remaining royal guards formed one final line across the tunnel entrance. Behind them, Malrek roared with fury. After them. The hidden passage twisted deep beneath Blackstone Mountain. Unlike the ancient tunnels above, these walls glowed softly with veins of silver crystal. The air felt warmer, cleaner. Each breath carried the scent of rain, fresh leaves, and spring flowers, though winter still ruled the world outside. The Guardian limped beside Aria. Its breathing had grown heavier. Dark veins spread slowly beneath its silver fur where the corruption had touched old wounds. Aria gently supported its massive head whenever the path narrowed. You've protected everyone for so long. Her voice echoed softly through the glowing corridor. Now let someone protect you. The Guardian looked at her. For the first time. Its weary eyes reflected something almost forgotten. Hope. The tunnel finally opened into an enormous cavern. Aria stopped in silent wonder. The Heart Vault. A crystal the size of a great oak tree floated above a perfectly still spring. Golden light poured through its clear surface like sunlight trapped inside glass. Thousands of glowing roots stretched outward into the mountain itself. Each one pulsed gently, like the heartbeat of the world. But nearly half those roots had already turned black. Darkness crept through them slowly, patiently, relentlessly. The Guardian walked toward the crystal. It lowered its head. The crystal answered. Golden light surrounded the ancient wolf. The corruption stopped spreading. Only for a moment. Words appeared across the stone surrounding the spring. Ancient letters shimmered until Aria somehow understood their meaning. Only a willing heart may restore what greed has broken. The burden cannot be taken. It must be accepted. Aria's breathing slowed. So that's the price. Behind her, footsteps echoed through the tunnel. Lucian entered the chamber. His armor was scarred. A cut along his forehead allowed blood to run slowly across his cheek. Only 3 royal guards remained beside him. We barely escaped, he admitted. The others are holding the passage. His eyes rose toward the floating crystal. For several long moments, he simply stared. So this is what my ancestors forgot. The elderly scholar entered behind them, exhausted but alive. He looked at the glowing words surrounding the spring. His shoulders slowly lowered. There is only one way. Lucian stepped toward the crystal. The burden belongs to the crown. He removed his sword. His heavy cloak slipped from his shoulders. If this kingdom survives, it should cost its king. Aria looked at him. You didn't create this. No. But I inherited it. The Guardian watched silently. Golden eyes moved between them. The crystal dimmed again. Time was running out. Without another word, Aria quietly stepped past Lucian. He reached for her arm. She gently caught his hand before he could stop her. You lead people. She smiled sadly. I heal them. The difference was simple. Yet it changed everything. Before anyone could stop her, Aria walked into the glowing spring. Golden light wrapped around her feet. The water remained perfectly warm. She reached both hands toward the floating crystal. The moment her fingertips touched its surface, the entire mountain shook. Black mist burst upward from every corrupted root. Darkness rushed toward her like living smoke. It wrapped around her arms, her shoulders, her heart. Pain unlike anything she had ever imagined raced through her body. Her knees nearly gave way. Dark veins spread beneath her skin. She bit her lip until blood filled her mouth. Not a single cry escaped. Behind her, Lucian stepped forward. Aria! The Guardian blocked his path. Not with violence. With understanding. This choice belonged to her alone. The crystal blazed brighter. Golden light poured into the Guardian. Silver fire raced through its ancient scars. The corruption flowing into Aria stopped spreading across the mountain. Instead, it gathered inside her. The burden had found its new bearer. Then, a terrible roar echoed through the heart vault. The entrance exploded inward. Stone shattered across the chamber. Lord Malrek stepped through the dust with dozens of surviving mercenaries behind him. His eyes locked onto the glowing crystal. A smile spread slowly across his face. So, he whispered, I've finally found it. He lifted a massive enchanted war hammer forged from black iron. Without hesitation, he swung it directly toward the heart crystal. The first crack spread across its golden surface, and the entire mountain screamed. The sound of the crystal cracking did not echo like breaking stone. It sounded like the forest itself crying out. A deep, aching vibration swept through the heart vault, shaking every pillar until fragments of ancient rock rained from the ceiling. The glowing spring rippled wildly beneath the floating crystal, and the golden roots stretching through the mountain flickered as if the kingdom's heartbeat had begun to fail. For one terrifying moment, every light went out. The chamber disappeared into darkness. Only the Guardian's golden eyes remained visible. Then Aria drew a slow, painful breath. The black veins spreading across her arms had reached her shoulders. Every heartbeat sent another wave of burning pain through her body, yet her hands never left. The cracked crystal. She refused to let go. The Guardian lifted its head. A long, powerful howl filled the chamber. The cry carried through every tunnel beneath Blackstone Mountain, over frozen valleys, across sleeping forests, and into villages where frightened families paused to listen. Far above, wolves hidden throughout Valenor raised their heads toward the winter sky. One after another, they answered. Their voices joined together until the mountains trembled beneath a chorus that had not been heard for centuries. Inside the heart vault, the crystal responded. A faint pulse of golden light pushed back the darkness. Lord Malrek's smile vanished. Stop her! His mercenaries rushed forward. Before they reached the spring, the Guardian moved. Though weakened, it crossed the chamber with breathtaking speed. Its silver body crashed into the first line of soldiers, sending shields and weapons flying across the stone floor. A second attacker swung an enchanted axe. The Guardian caught the blow on its shoulder. Pain flashed across its face, but it never stepped back. Instead, it struck the stone with one mighty paw. Silver light burst outward in a blinding wave. The black iron weapons cracked. One by one, cursed blades shattered into useless fragments. Lucian seized the moment. For Valenor. His voice rang through the chamber. The remaining royal guards charged beside him. Steel met steel beneath falling stone. Lucian fought not with anger but with unwavering purpose. Every movement protected someone else. Every strike opened space between the enemy and Aria. Nearby, the old scholar hurried toward a circle of ancient runes carved around the spring. His weathered fingers brushed away dust and broken stone. The covenant. He whispered. It was never broken. He looked toward Lucian. The Guardian cannot finish this alone. What must we do? Stand together. Without hesitation, Lucian planted his sword into the ancient circle. The scholar placed both trembling hands upon the glowing stone. The surviving guards followed. One by one, they touched the ancient runes. Golden light spread beneath their feet. The Guardian stepped into the circle beside them. Its enormous head lowered beside Aria. The heart crystal answered. Its light grew stronger. Not because of power. Because no one inside the chamber stood alone anymore. Malrek watched the growing light with widening eyes. No. He tore another black crystal from his armor and hurled it toward the heart. Dark energy exploded across the chamber. The Guardian leaped. Its massive body intercepted the blast. The force threw the ancient wolf across the stone floor. It struck a broken pillar with enough strength to split solid rock. Silence followed. The Guardian did not rise. Aria looked toward her faithful companion. Tears blurred her vision. The silver wolf struggled for breath. Its chest rose only slightly. Its golden eyes searched until they found hers. Even now, there was no fear. Only quiet trust. Something inside Aria refused to surrender. She closed her eyes. Every memory filled her heart at once. The hungry bird she had fed as a child. The injured fox she had carried through a snowstorm. The frightened villagers who had smiled because one simple healer never asked for payment. The lonely guardian waiting beneath the mountain. Kindness had never made her powerful. It had simply taught her how to keep reaching for others when the world expected her to walk away. She placed both hands firmly against the cracked crystal. If my life is enough, she whispered, then let this land live. The words were carried away by silence. Then the heart crystal burst into brilliant gold. Light flooded every corner of the chamber. Darkness recoiled like smoke before sunrise. The black veins covering Aria's arms stopped spreading. Instead, streams of golden light flowed through them, weaving around the corruption until it could no longer grow. The Guardian slowly lifted its head. Its wounds began to close. Not instantly, but gently, as though spring itself had touched winter. Outside the mountain, the miracle spread. Frozen rivers cracked open beneath clear running water. Snow-covered trees pushed out tiny green buds despite the season. Fields that had been grey for years welcomed fresh grass. Birdsong returned to silent forests. Even the cold wind softened. Valenor was breathing again. Inside the heart vault, Malrek staggered backward. What have you done? His voice shook. This power belongs to me. He rushed toward the crystal one final time. Before he reached it, the ancient runes surrounding the spring blazed with light. The chamber itself rejected him. Golden chains of pure light rose from the floor, wrapping around his arms and legs. He struggled wildly. The harder he fought, the tighter they became. The old scholar stepped forward. They do not bind the innocent. They answer only greed. Malrek screamed as the light stripped away every illusion he had hidden behind. Ancient records concealed within the walls emerged from secret chambers opened by the awakened heart. Stone tablets. Royal seals. Forgotten journals. Centuries of truth. The scholar picked up the nearest record. His voice echoed through the chamber. It was House Malrek that betrayed the first guardian. It was House Malrek that forged the cursed chains. It was House Malrek that erased the true history of Blackstone. Lucian stared silently at the evidence. Generations of lies had finally come to an end. Malrek lowered his head. For the first time, no excuse came. No clever words. No hidden scheme. Only defeat. Weeks later, the great hall of Valenor overflowed with nobles, villagers, soldiers, and elders from every corner of the kingdom. The ancient records rested upon a long wooden table for all to see. No voice could deny the truth any longer. Lord Malrek was stripped of his title, his lands, and every privilege his family had stolen through fear and deception. Justice came without cruelty. He was led away not by angry mobs, but by the law he had spent a lifetime. twisting for himself. When the great doors of the hall opened once more, a familiar silver figure stepped inside. The Guardian. Not as a prisoner. Not as a weapon. As a free companion. The enormous wolf walked calmly through the silent crowd until it reached Aria. Its great head lowered. Its nose gently rested against her hand. The hall remained silent. Then, one by one, the people bowed. Not to a throne. Not to a crown. But to the bond they had witnessed with their own eyes. Lucian stepped beside Aria. His voice carried across the hall. From this day forward, the covenant between humankind and the Guardians shall be restored. No creature that protects this kingdom will ever again wear chains. And no act of compassion will ever again be mistaken for weakness. The months that followed changed Valenor in ways no one believed possible. Blackstone Mountain no longer frightened travelers. Children climbed its lower paths to gather wildflowers, laughing whenever peaceful wolf songs drifted through the valleys. The forests grew thicker with every passing season. Crystal-clear rivers reflected bright summer skies. Animals returned to lands that had stood empty for generations. Aria continued living simply. She never asked for riches. She never sought titles. Her small healing cottage welcomed anyone who needed help, whether they arrived wearing silk or patched wool. The Guardian remained at her side by choice. Sometimes villagers saw the great silver wolf resting beneath the old oak outside her home while children quietly gathered around without fear. Years later, those children would tell their own sons and daughters about the healer who had walked willingly into darkness to save strangers she had never met. And whenever winter snow covered Blackstone Mountain once again, travelers sometimes paused to listen. They no longer heard lonely howls echoing through forgotten tunnels. Instead, the mountain sang with peaceful wolf voices carried gently upon the wind. A reminder that the strongest chains were never broken by force. They were broken by a kind heart brave enough to reach into the deepest darkness and refuse to let hope die.